Hi there, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've all had a meaningful and restful holidays. We've been going through some heavy transits, and there's been a lot of intense shifts and cycles going on around us. So I hope everyone is feeling safe and calm. Because we also collectively know that this transition will take a while, and we don't know what the outcome's going to be. I think all of us are being pulled into the now, not by choice, but because everything's so uncertain. We can't really make future plans because everything might change, and everything has certainly changed a lot from our past or even just from the last year. So I guess the blessing and the gift in that is that we all like the concept of staying in the now and being present in the present. But until we're forced to do that under very specific and intense circumstances, it can be a hard concept to follow. So you're probably already noticing how much our attachment to either the past or the future or both has kept us moving forward in the now. But we also have a lot of fear about not being attached to the future or the past, because being in the present moment means sitting and surrendering to everything that we are right now. And I'm seeing this play out in a lot of people. Not only are we going through this huge transition collectively, but individuals are experiencing pretty intense physical shifts, pretty intense mental shifts as well, spiritual awakenings or regressions, and certainly emotional changes. So, and I like to take note of the similarity in the stories that I hear throughout my friends, family, and clients, because sometimes they go through these beautiful cycles that the details are different, but the experiences are the same, the processing's the same. For a lot of people, they feel like they've had no choice but to be releasing deep-seated repressed emotions, and they're not coming up organized, they're not coming up in therapy rooms, they're coming up all over the place. And there's not much that we can do except for surrender to that and let it happen. But there's fear around it, right? So when things aren't organized and structured and controlled, we have fear because of mental health stigma, because of everything's been so certain and structured and routine, and now it seems like it's all coming up willy-nilly. And our resistance to that, for me, is the interesting part. And it reminds me of something that I've always understood and observed in people that have been through trauma, right? We can safely say now that we've all been through trauma. It doesn't matter how deep and dark that trauma is. No one is trauma-free. And please know that amongst all of your friends, your family, everyone has experienced something that has caused a massive change in their neural networking, that has brought up very intense emotional states, and that has had a ripple effect throughout their entire life. So there's no judgment on trauma. Trauma happens to all of us. And I've said this before, but trauma is the parts of our lives that have the most significant impact. When we take away the judgment of good or bad or dark or hard or challenging, we find that these events in our life are the ones that have the most influence, the ones that shape us the most, the ones that ask us, invite us to go deeper into ourselves, They are the parts that call us back, that haunt us, that coax us back to exploring those deeper and harder parts of ourselves. I mean, trauma's really popular at the moment. Everything that was avoided and kept under the carpet, so to speak, is now allowed to come out and be aired out and explored. And that's becoming acceptable, which is causing a massive part of the Great Awakening, right? So the fact that we're now allowed to digest all of these events, and we can see in other people that they've been through such things as well. This is creating first of all, it's creating a lot of collective chaos, and everything's coming up and out almost forcefully. People are processing a lot of stuff, as well as feeling what's happening all over the world. But what I mentioned about what we all go through when we experience a traumatic event is usually from a traumatic event, an intense event, an event that changed our neural networking, that greatly triggered our nervous system, that delved into usually extreme fear. Is our mind and our body create survival mechanisms from that event. So it doesn't matter how old you are, but obviously a child's survival mechanisms are going to be different to an adult's. So there is a slightly different energy to childhood trauma than there is to adult trauma, but we act relatively in the same way. It's just that as an adult, we can quickly go into processing and making logical what we've been through, whereas a child processes emotionally and sets up survival mechanisms around that event and limiting beliefs to keep themselves safe, right? So it's not uncommon for traumatic experiences to involve other people. And it doesn't matter what age we are, but we often create limiting beliefs around what is safe for us with other people, what is safe for us in our mental and physical capacity. And those survival mechanisms are there to serve us. So it doesn't matter whether your traumatic event is an elaborate, ongoing thing, but let's just keep it simple for an example. So let's say you walk next to a cliff and one day you fall down the cliff, you hurt yourself, you get extreme fear, but you manage to climb back up. Your survival mechanisms become don't walk too close to a cliff. You might develop a fear of heights. You might even have some kind of reaction to the sound or the texture of the rock that you fell onto or off of. And these survival mechanisms can even grow from there. Some people develop aversion to the time of day or the season of the year that event happened. And all of this is really your nervous system saying, that was the biggest threat to my life. I want to make sure that doesn't happen again. I need to evolve from that experience and learn and grow from it so that I can keep myself safe. That makes sense for an easy example, but when the traumatic experience involves more emotional or physical trauma that isn't as black and white as physical safety, like if I fall off the cliff, and if the other people involved in the event now are the reason that you create a lot of mechanisms around connection and people and relationships and things, the survival mechanisms get quite different. But the point is this: from our trauma, we always have survival mechanisms that serve us to keep us safe. When people are working through their trauma, everybody does it in a different way. Some people like to go directly into it. They like to talk about it. They like to relive it. They like to act their way through the scenario. Others don't like to delve so deep into it. They like to heal around it, but have it there up for discussion if they need to. And all of that is so effective, so valid, and so meaningful in creating safety around opening up that box, let's say. The most influential thing that I've found about healing trauma in a sustainable way, so that we can continue walking through the healing of that trauma as we work towards complete acceptance, which means forgiveness, and appreciation. I think appreciation is where a lot of people need to be heading towards, particularly with trauma, to get to the point where I can say, I love that that happened to me, and I can love it because it's mine. As we follow that path towards appreciation and gratitude, it's important that we walk a path in our lives that opposes the safety mechanisms and survival instincts set up by our trauma. What does that mean, right? So if I fall off the cliff, my fear tells me to be aware of the cliff, and that's valid, that serves me. But the more I focus on my fear of the cliff, the further away from the cliffs I get, keeping me safe. However, I would progressively get more fearful. My nervous system would start to remain in fight or flight. As I move away from the cliff, I often get reminded of the trauma of falling off. Oh, I have to stay away from the cliff because I fell off that one time and that was really bad and all of this happened, and we get the motor mind. But if I can walk a path that has me carefully and mindfully walking close to the cliff despite my fear, and having that experience be teaching me and inviting me back to the cliff in a way that feels vulnerable but comfortable, my mind will go into overdrive to try and keep me safe. It will remind me of all the safety mechanisms I have. But if I want calm and clarity in my mind, then I believe walking the path close to the cliff, not going into high risk states, just walking close to a cliff, is a way that I can honor my trauma, walk through it, and get further away from the fear and the survival mechanisms that have served me up until now. So I wanted to share that because a lot of people get to the point in their journey that they know what they want, they're trying to get there, they're making the action steps to get there, but they reach a barrier that says, you don't know what's beyond this barrier, you don't know what that path means, right? They're usually working towards more connection, more abundance, a beautiful career, a loving relationship, health, wealth, well-being. And they can get themselves to that point, and their trauma is sitting on that barrier saying, it's not safe there. You don't know what's there. You've never had abundance and deep connection and wealth and health. You've never had that. How do we know that's safe? And at that barrier, it's important to know that those survival mechanisms have served you up until that barrier. They have kept you safe. But now as you wake up more and more and you're making conscious, authentic, aware decisions, then taking small steps beyond that barrier, allowing your mind to invoke all of the safety mechanisms. It will be a busy space, so that you can walk slowly along that cliff, keeping your physical safety exactly where it needs to be, and just slightly challenging those survival mechanisms so that one day you can walk along that cliff freely. And where we really want to get to with trauma is almost like walking along that cliff every day brings you peace and calm. Your trauma becomes a memory that doesn't have charge, that isn't dark or light or scary or bad. It's that memory that you slowly find appreciation for, because here you are walking along this cliff and that was so scary for so long, and now it feels like I'm free and I'm alive and I'm walking a path that might not be 100% certain and safe, but I'm walking it because I choose to, and I'm walking away from my trauma, holding deep appreciation for everything that it's provided for me and everything that has got me up until this point. So there's always resistance. Please remember that your mind is there to help you understand and process your environment. Your mind does not know or could not comprehend the benefits of walking slowly and mindfully along that cliff. Your mind will keep you safe. The narratives will be there for you to weigh up the risks involved with each step. But when we bring governance back into our heart, we know that walking along that cliffside, despite the risks, is where we need to be. Because there is freedom in that vulnerability. There's freedom in acknowledging deeply what we've been through and saying that I'm not going to let this control me anymore. If we want to believe that we can be free, we can feel fear and not let it control us, we can walk our own path knowing that we are safe because we always have ourselves. And I just hope that that resonates with some of you. And if you're tinkering on that barrier where the monkey mind is trying to prevent you from going somewhere where you know that your heart wants to take you, and you know that it's safe, there might be risk. Risk doesn't keep us away from doing things that are part of our evolutionary path. Risk is part of the deal. And fear is part of the deal. But we can feel that fear and do it anyway, and take our shadow with us. And just take small steps every day towards what you want, and allowing that deep, honorable serving of ourselves to come through step by step. So much love to you all. Thank you for tuning in. I'm back doing healing sessions online and face-to-face on Tamborine Mountain. Please get in touch if you're interested, or if you want to share anything at all. So much love and light to you all, and happy 2021. Strapping in for another year, and wishing you all the very best. Much love. Bye.